Hey everybody, welcome back to our second hour of Down the Rabbit Hole. I'm your host Shelly Lewis, and we are continuing with retired fire captains John and Matt. And for those of you who are just tuning in, we're continuing our talk about the Paradise Fires. Last hour we talked about some of the questions we have on YouTube with supposedly Shelly during the first three sessions we had with these firefighters on their Paradise examinations. This hour we're going to talk about some new findings as well as give some more clarifications about the last interviews. So welcome back, John and Matt. Thanks you guys so much. I'll just let you take it away.
All right, thanks, Shelly. Yeah, so continuing on, since the interviews that we had with you a month ago, many of the findings that we talked about have been since reported by others as well. And that's YouTube has been a great source. In addition to all the comments, great comments, we had a lot of the comments supported what we were saying. We had people from Canada, from other countries saying, hey, same thing happened here, same thing going on here. So a lot of the evidence that we found here, the way the fires burned, were echoed by others. Then we had more residents came out. We talked about this stuff. Since then, we had a lot more residents coming out saying a similar story too, of things such as not being able to get out, trying to leave on Skyway, which is the main drag to get into Paradise, to Skyway Boulevard. And a lot of them saying the same story, how they were not able to leave. The police would not let them leave. So that was one of them. So I want to give a plug to Jamie Lee from plaintruth.info. He has done an incredible, probably put out more information than anybody that I've seen, and he's probably up to close to 70 videos now or something, and they're called Paradise Lost. It's on a plaintruth.info, Paradise Lost, and then he just numbers them 1, 2, 3, or like that. And he has put out a ton of information, a lot more interviews with people. And he had one, I think it was yesterday, the day before, a 911 tape from a gal calling up Paradise PD. And she said, hey, I'm here in Paradise. I'm worried about the fire. Do I need to evacuate? And a dispatcher from Paradise PD said, oh no, we haven't been told of any need to evacuate. So unless you feel threatened, unless you haven't heard anything. So there was a disconnect between, for some reason, this gal had heard other sources, she said, that she was told to evacuate, so she called 911, and 911 dispatcher knew nothing about the need to evacuate. Said, no, it's just up in Concal now, don't worry about it.
So, are we supposed to be evacuated or what? No, you'll be notified. There's a fire north of Concal, up off of Highway 70. No danger to Paradise, okay? Well, it says evacuation west side of Pence Road. What says that? Fire. Okay, we haven't been advised of that. If you have gotten a phone call, or if you see flames or feel the need to leave, then do that at this time. But we haven't been notified, okay?
It just makes you wonder, that was, how many others, if there's a breakdown in the system for whatever reason.
And they said that the alerts that went out did not go out. A lot of people didn't even get them, so this completely confirms that nobody really knew what was going on, and how did they get out?
Exactly. So
yeah, Jamie Lee really did a great job, so I'll plug for plaintruth.info. Jamie Lee YouTube channel is a plaintruth.info.
Right, and there were a lot of other people, a lot of other residents have also come forward and confirmed that the staging area on Skyway Boulevard was there well prior to the fire. So apparently PG&E had told people that they were there to cut trees or whatever, but they had that large staging area already in place well before the fire. Another thing I'd like to talk about is when we were up there with Deborah and Lou, Deborah put it together in her head that all these people at these shelters were suffering from the norovirus. And then she realized that the symptoms of the norovirus are exactly the same as radiation exposure.
Whoa.
So, something to consider for all the people that were...
I have something to add to that too. Is that that was an excellent observation by Deborah. But that I actually looked it up. I actually looked this up. I said, it seems to me it's like they were talking about this norovirus outbreak awful soon after this fire, right? So I looked it up, and there's like a sort of a non-definitive test that they could do to make an immediate diagnosis on it. But here's the deal with that, is that they have to have some underlying reason to suspect it. In other words, maybe the emergency department is seeing a huge uptake in these flu cases, and finally they get definitive evidence from a lab that, oh yeah, here's the virus you're dealing with, this norovirus. And that wasn't going on before the fire, so for them to do more of a definitive testing on it takes longer. So if they were using the test that gives them immediate feedback and indicates, yeah, oh yeah, this is a viral infection or whatever, that's not definitive enough because it hasn't evolved. It's a fresh uptick, and so I think it said that it took about somewhere between 48 and 72 hours to get the lab results back for definitive. And it's just my recollection that we were getting all these reports that the victims were having norovirus like really early on after the fire. Back to you, Matt.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's hard to know. We were up there a month after the fire, so it's hard to know.
Well, we can pull up the reports because this was all in the news. Yep.
Already.
So we'll put those in this video presentation of what those reports were, but and what the symptoms of it would be, and what the symptoms of radiation would be, and so that's a really interesting connection.
One thing, I guess this probably belongs in the comment section, but a couple people commented on HR Bill 6725, which was introduced on September 6th of 2018, and I'll just read the topic. It's to carry out research, development, test, and evaluation activities on a joint basis with Israel to establish directed energy capabilities that address threats to the U.S. or Israel and for other purposes. So that legislation was just introduced on September 6th of 2018. And like I said, for people that doubt any of this, there's so much, and John had mentioned last time, you can see the presentations that these companies give to their shareholders on the capabilities of all these different weapon systems that are out there. So
lasers sound like the stuff of science fiction, right? Sound completely unbelievable. How could our military possibly be using those in future warfare? Guess what? We've just had a recent breakthrough, more great test results that are making lasers a reality. So it's called Athena. Lockheed Martin makes it, and they've been doing a lot of the pioneering in this laser field. Now, what's really exciting about it is that it's so hard to harness that much power and make it compact enough that it's actually going to make practical sense downrange. And they've proven that they can do that. Recently, they tested it against 5 moving drones, so realistic drones that they might go up against with, enemy forces might send against us, for example, or terrorists might send against us. And it successfully shot down all 5 of the drones. This is huge news because it means that in a realistic, practical setting, it's looking very promising. So it could be ready to field quite soon. So when you see the movies or you look at comic books or television shows, when you see laser weapons, they tend to be a color, right? Red or green or something like that. Real lasers, one of the key advantages that they provide is that they are invisible. You actually can't see them. You just see this damage suddenly starting to blow something up. So if we take a look now at what the Athena did to a truck. So we're looking at a truck engine, and the Athena within seconds was able to beam right in there, heat the whole thing up, and burn through the engine of this vehicle. So if you can imagine if you were in that vehicle, all of a sudden, this hole would start appearing in your engine, and the whole thing would just disappear. That's what these lasers do. Now, there's some other key advantages that we should mention. Let me give you 3 of them. 1, unlimited ammo. As long as we have power, we have an unlimited magazine. And downrange, of course, having unlimited ammo can be a huge advantage. Second, it's silent. Don't give the enemy any advance warning that it's coming. And then the third one I wanted to touch on is that it travels at the speed of light. So not only are we delivering powerful, decisive effects, lethality, we're also doing it so rapidly they don't know what hit them. So if you can circle back to that example of being in the car again, that would happen so instantaneously, within seconds, you truly would have no idea what was happening. It would just suddenly start disintegrating, right? So what can we use these against? So we talked about the vehicle a bit. We talked about how Athena has just proven itself against drones. But in the real world application, our forces could use it against the drones. We could use it against aircraft. We could use it against vehicles on the ground, like we mentioned. We could also use it against fast attack boats. And in fact, Athena's sibling, Adam, a couple years ago proved that it could eliminate these fast attack boats. So if you imagine boats start trying to swarm one of our ships, not a problem for this laser. Burns right through the hull. As you can see right there, it's burning right through the hull. I'm incredibly excited about this news, this great news about the successful testing of Athena, because it means that we'll be putting these powerful weapons soon. We could put them in the hands of our warfighters and give them even more powerful weaponry to keep themselves safe and also to deliver the effects that we need. They can be used, laser weapons can be used offensively and of course defensively too, to help protect our homeland. Think of our airports that might be under threat from enemy drones. They could be used to protect we could use them statically and used to protect our airports. They could be used to protect our power grid, our nuclear plants. So there's lots of different exciting applications for this technology. It is no longer science fiction, but science fact.
This is just one more piece of evidence that was just from September of 2018.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It's truth in plain sight.
Yes. Yes.
It's like putting together a big jigsaw puzzle.
Yeah.
Because Matt and I, we do not profess to know everything there is to know about all this stuff.
No.
And that's why we tried to keep the first 3 videos evidence-based.
And that's where, and so here's more evidence since that time. You know, when we said a month ago, it looks like directed energy weapons, we weren't the first ones to say that, but it seemed a little more out there than it seems like a month later. I mean, it seems a lot more out there than it seems now. And just at the end of December, I don't know if you remember Kenner, Louisiana, video footage of what appeared to be directed energy weapons.
That's crazy!
The same time that was going on in New York City, about the same time period, big blue lights in the sky, remember that? That was at a power substation, and it was supposedly caused by a transformer explosion. But these videos are pretty compelling. I mean, you can actually see what appears to be a light beam coming down. Yeah, unbelievable. And that, yeah, the one in New York City, you can actually look up, Richie from Boston did a great YouTube on it, and it's called Blue Beams Caught on Film. So anyways, at the same time those were going on, also a bunch of the 911 systems went down, as well as ATMs. So, but the video footage is pretty compelling. And then just about a week ago in Sao Paulo, Brazil, same thing. Jamie Lee put out some video footage on that, and so did others.
That was awesome footage.
Again, what appears to be some sort of directed energy weapon. So that's all just happened within this last month and within the last couple of weeks, some of those. The other thing, a great piece of evidence, again, that Jamie came up with, is off of Highway 70, across the canyon, you look up on the hills, you'll see areas where there's totally blackened, and these are heavily wooded hills with large fir trees and ponderosas, and completely blackened where there's nothing left, big areas. But then to the right and to the left and on either side, the trees are alive. So something, some external force came and burned everything completely. So it was hot enough to burn everything, burn the trees up, everything completely, but wasn't hot enough to even continue burning even anything. So
It's like a swatch.
nature does not do that, and it was one here and one over here and one over here. So it was several different ones. And nature doesn't, things don't work that way where it's hot enough to completely burn everything. This is on a hillside, no houses, no nothing, no man-made structures around. Completely burned everything. But then the trees over here wasn't hot enough to keep burning over here, which should have been exactly the same fuel to the right and to the left. So incredible evidence. I mean, to me, that's about as good evidence as the melted smart meter in the cabinet that had no fire to the exterior of it. I mean, to me, it's just clear evidence. What else?
So fire scarring, it was scarring the hillside.
Absolutely.
And the firemen weren't there putting it out. They weren't, just little patches of these fires, and then they didn't catch other things on fire, which was
Yeah, it completely
anomaly.
burned. It completely burned. I mean, there were no trees there. Everything was completely decimated. There's nothing, black down to nothing. But then you had the trees on the left and trees on the right, and that's just not the way it works.
You would call those the flanks of the fire area. Clear line of demarcation. It didn't like completely destroy all these materials and partially destroy these materials on the flank. Just a clear line of demarcation. Black, green.
Incredible.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work that way
No,
in nature.
nature does not work that way. And so one interesting thing is, the Space Force that you've heard Donald Trump talk about, get the Space Force going. So it just makes you wonder. I mean, obviously all this stuff, it's all secretive. Whatever these technologies are, they're out there, the information's out there, but who's using them, where, when, why they're being used, that's the secretive part. But we know they exist. And so it's interesting that now we've got a Space Force that Donald Trump's putting together. Just makes you wonder what's where the real battles are taking place.
So clarification on the directed energy weapons. There was a question, can there be different forms of directed energy weapons? Okay.
Absolutely, and it's all just different frequencies, whether they're microwaves or radio waves, depending on their frequency and different characteristics based on the different frequencies too. So,
And they can be mounted in different delivery systems. So surface-mounted vehicles, they can be mounted in surface-mounted vehicles. They can be mounted stationary, like in buildings or up on power poles. They can be mounted in airplanes, different types of flying aircraft, on ships, and maybe potentially even satellite.
And drones too.
And drones,
Little
too.
about drones.
So yeah.
Does the smart meter have any connection to being able to administer any type of weaponry that you know of?
other than the fact that it could be the weak link if it gets pulsed, because that's obviously something like that happened. A surge or pulse of energy had to have started the one in the cabinet.
Yeah.
And so whether that's by accident or...
And we've seen that in other isolated fires where smart meters were involved, where the only part of the structure that burned was around the smart meter.
Right, and I wonder, this is just my own curiosity, the houses that were left standing, we talked about grounding, and I wonder too if there's an opt-out program, which we talked about in some of our videos, if those addresses had opted out, I would love to just see if there was a correlation. But that's my own little investigative.
And we had some commenters ask those questions, and we
don't know.
Yeah, and there was other questions about polls, and we didn't.
We don't know. We'll do some more follow up. I'm curious to see which houses made it.
I'd like to address the one on polls though real quick.
Okay.
Because that's actual evidence that we saw during the time that we were up there. By the time we could finally get in, most of the damaged poles had already been removed. So most of my observations with the power poles is based on video evidence that I've seen that people took at different times during and immediately after the fire. Okay? There appears to be clear anomalies with the way the poles burn. And if you're familiar with the power pole, you have a lower line of wires which are usually utility-based wires, cable, phone, those types of things, utility-based wires. Then up on top of the pole, you have a mast or a cross arm where the actual
High tension.
the high tension wires where the electricity is carried. Okay, a lot of these poles, the telephone poles, appear to burn at that line. And so 3 different things actually. Some were burning at the base, some of the power poles, and some of them were burning at that line where the utilities are carried, so midway up on the pole. And as I looked at some of the evidence on those, it seemed to be tied again back to the metals. Places where metal boxes were fastened to the pole, apparently junction boxes or whatever, and it appeared to be that they were burning at that level based on the metals.
And that was like along the lines with the fences that you found, where the metal fencing is completely where the metal is, and the wood, it's charred.
Right.
Which is no question.
Definitely something to that. There's definitely something to that. One other thing that I'd like to, talking about all these different places that look like directed energy weapons, the power substation in Kenner, Louisiana, and Sao Paulo, Brazil. Again, a plug. Richie from Boston did a video about this document that came out in December, and it's called, from the government, it's called National Infrastructure Advisory Council. It's a 94-page document, and it talks about the need to be prepared to how to be without power. So it's just interesting that came out in December, this 94-page document by the government. And it talks about how you need to be able to go for extended period of time without power and expect it. To expect it is, I haven't read it, but that's what he says is in there. It says to expect to be without power. So it's interesting along with all this.
Wow.
So
It's all little pieces.
Little pieces of the puzzle. We did get some questions, and I'm not really sure if I'm equipped to answer. I'm just learning about Agenda 21, and the goal is to get people from the country into more of a city living, urban type.
I've studied it for a long time. That's absolutely correct. They have 11 mega regions that they ultimately, that's the long-term goal, is to get people, they call it stack and pack. And these are going to be smart cities where basically we'll have 5G everywhere, but we may have that everywhere anyways, whether we're not in there or not. And very controlled environment. That's where they want to encourage people to move into these areas. And that's been a theory for a long time, that a lot of these fires, are maybe part of an Agenda 21 plot to get people out of the rural areas into the cities. So
where you're tied to your electric company, you have to always have your power. You have to have your water.
Your monitor.
Your monitor. Your food, right? You can't even grow your own food very well.
No.
Well, and Deborah's breaking some stuff open right now about some PG&E and starting to create power based on these solar panels in space, basically, and creating and then converting them into like a laser that reconverts them back into electricity when it's back on Earth. So it could potentially dim the sun for us, for our benefit. And
Interesting.
create their own
Global.
power out with the panelizing satellites or whatever, and then send in power that way. And it just seems like control.
Control. And we're all slaves because we can't even grow our own food out in the country anymore because it will be on no man's land. And did you hear anything? I need to fact check this about benzene being found in the soil. Have you heard anything about this up in Paradise?
I don't know about Paradise. I think they found a
Tubbs
lot
fire.
in the Tubbs fire in Santa Rosa. They found a lot. So
Is
yeah.
benzene natural fire retardant, or how would that actually happen?
Benzene is a product that's used in
Diesel.
production of fuels
Yeah,
for cars.
it's a carcinogen. I don't know. I think it's a diesel, but I don't know much more about it than that.
So it's been off limits for people to go back because benzene's a toxic substance, and so a lot of the people from that fire haven't been able to go back. We've heard reports that Paradise people are able to go back. And then I was down in Malibu. I went to one of the talks from a lawyer that was giving people advice on what they should do now that they're able to go back into Malibu. And that fire actually happened the same time of the Paradise fire. And little did I know, but these people, not only do they lose everything, but they're responsible for all the cleanup. And it's just, I mean, how do you...
At what point does it go beyond being completely absurd?
And that just, there's one thing I didn't really touch on that just kind of sticks out to me is, we heard reports of, like one person said, hey, they paid me off, my insurance paid me off before the fire was even out. And then we have others, Jamie Lee from PlainTruth.info did an interview of a guy who's actually just hired on Paradise Fire Department going through the Butte Academy, and nobody's even reached out to him since then. Nobody's even reached out, and he along with many others. So there seems to be two groups of people that were taken care of right away, and it seems like there's another group of people that are just still confused and struggling to get the kind of assistance and help that they need. So
Right.
that's just what stands out in my mind.
Right.
So,
I wanted to also add for the listeners, if the listeners have not researched Agenda 21 and Agenda 2030, this stuff that we're talking about here is going to be really difficult for them to understand. Agenda 21 and Agenda 2030 have been carefully planned for decades, and they want to concentrate us in cities, they want us in stack-a-pack, and also there's a whole eugenics program around that. They want to reduce the population so that we're more manageable. If they have us in cities, concentrated in cities, then obviously we're controllable with cameras and by signals they could send out or whatever. So it's a very sinister agenda.
and it's UN Agenda 21. This is the United Nations, and they're setting policy for the counties
The
and
global
the cities
population.
and the cities to adopt these policies in order to get their money. So,
So when I went through this in pretty good detail with one of the interviews that I did with Scott, is how these organizations cooperate, and it's all the way down to local level now. Yes, the origin of Agenda 21 and Agenda 2030 is basically the United Nations.
it started
is-
in '92.
it's-
1919 in the Rio Summit.
Yeah, and the United Nations is just an arm for the New World Order. So, but that's where it is. And the way that it's filtered down in these lower organizations is that there's been creations of these groups of counties. And when I was working with City of Petaluma, we got to directly experience all this. In the San Francisco Northern Bay area, the one that we're in is called SCAG. I'm sorry, not SCAG, ABAG. ABAG.
Association of Bay Area Governments.
Association of Bay Area Governments. And so they get these local governments to kind of go along with this plan. And this has been Oh, it's been under development probably 3 decades, I think.
I know it started, I believe, in 1992 at the Rio Summit for Agenda 21. That's where Agenda 21 was born.
So that'd be about
So,
right.
yeah.
So, yeah, and people are very largely unaware of it. So, ABAG is for the Northern Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area. The sister organization for the Southern California group, where the epicenter of the fires were, Ventura and Oxnard, there's 9 area counties in the group that represents those counties, and it's called SCAG, Southern California Area Governments. And so they're making policy and making decisions about where people can live and where they can't live.
And that's
these are
where all the
unelected
green
people.
stuff you hear, all the green stuff, which sounds on its
Sounds
face,
good,
it sounds
flowery.
good. The word sustainable development sounds good. It all sounds good. But most of the stuff is actually opposite. Just like the Patriot Act, not very patriotic. All this stuff is actually not true to what the words say. So
So much deeper agenda.
yeah, much deeper agenda, but disguised as all green and sustainable and good for us living together. And it's, when you do the deeper research, you realize that it's more all about control. And there is a depopulation agenda, and that's a whole nother, you do a whole nother video or videos on that, and there's a ton of evidence and information for that.
Right, and we talked about that with our interview, John Lord, about who are they and what the agenda was. So that's on supposedly Shelley. That's a great interview. So that goes into a lot of that detail.
So yeah, just to emphasize, I'm going to leave this point for your listeners. That if your listeners are from the Southern California area or any other area on the planet for that matter that's been involved in fires and you're doing research, look into these organizations. So for Southern California, it'd be SCAG, this Southern California area
Government.
governments.
Interesting.
And they have documents, or they largely operate in secret, but if you could start to work the document trail backwards from them, you'll find out that they're involved in somehow facilitating these agendas where we're being burned off our land.
And then just the building codes alone, like you said, smart
Absolutely.
cities.
Absolutely. That's all coming from this. It's all part of it.
And they've been at it for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I've been retired for 10 years, but we dealt with it in the city of Petaluma. They were all in bed together. The local
Interesting.
planners and local politicians were all in bed with these AMAG people.
I mean, and now I believe for any new residences that you want to build, you have to put solar on the roof. I believe or maybe it's not on the roof. Maybe you don't have, but it's all they all have to. I mean, it's just a lot of it sounds good on the face. It sounds good on its face, but it's more about control.
Control.
Or all about control. I should
Right,
say.
which leads us to 5G, which is coming. And
Very, very bad, very dangerous. You know, it's unstudied. Well, it's by the people that are putting it out. It's unstudied, but they know that range. It's microwave. Basically, it's microwave range, and it'll damage your cells. So again, part of the system, and they can turn it up when they want. So scary stuff.
I know we talked about this with John on off the record. Was I'm throwing away my cell phone when 5G goes around. I told my kids, "You're going to get walkie-talkies, and we're going back to a cup and a string to be able to contact each other."
I haven't had that conversation with my kids yet, but I'm telling you, it's coming.
The
Yeah.
scary
If we
part.
get forced into it, I'll destroy my...
Me
The
too.
scary part is, the real scary part is they're talking about putting up satellites and doing it to try and get 5G everywhere. And then we have to go live underground. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
I've
So-
even heard they're putting it underground as well. On light poles, I heard every light pole will have it, as well as they're trying to get the technology grounded underground.
We'll see about that, won't we?
Right, because it doesn't travel well through plants and things, so.
We'll just-
Obstructions,
we'll just
right.
see
They
how
have
far
to-
they get with
yeah.
5G,
Right,
won't we?
right. That's right. We have to wait and see. And there's always, the good news is getting the information out there to make people aware, and some strategies that we talked about. How can we, what can we do? And that's on the YouTube part 3 of the Paradise Fires, where John and Matt really break this down on what are our next steps, how can we fix this. So you can go and check those out.
Yeah, to me that's the most important, is for people to realize there is a problem, to realize these aren't natural, these fires are not natural, and that's the first step, is getting people to realize, oh my God, these guys they're onto something.
And start to do research that's relative to their own plight and their own situation. That's why I mentioned these groups again. Because the people in Southern California are going through the exact same people the people in Paradise are.
Yeah.
Right?
It's
the same narrative, right, John?
It's basically the same narrative. It's like
Right.
develop networks and see what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Deborah talks about it at length, what the climate action plans.
That's right. I almost brought that up. Climate Action Plan, again, I believe that comes down from the UN, and that's every county, every city is part of this Climate Action Plan. And she's the one that's been bringing this information out. Read your climate action plan. And what she says is, what it says in there is how you are going to be attacked through weather manipulation, weather warfare. And it tells right in there, every county, every city, what to expect in the future. So,
Yeah, Deborah Tavares.
yeah.
And Jamie Lee, plaintruth.info. And Deborah Tavares' website again is
StopTheCrime.net.
StopTheCrime.net. So, any further thoughts?
So Matt and I spent a lot of time in Paradise going over forensic evidence. And I would just like to say the destruction at the base of the trees, the trunk of the trees where they went into the ground, the root destruction in the trees and many other vegetation, type smaller trees up there, consistent all over a broad geographical area, consistent. Okay, the destruction of the cars was equally consistent. Total destruction of the car, except for things that were non-combustible, like the steel on the body, the engine block, and certain other things that were either cast iron or steel. Okay, consistent patterns. We're talking consistent patterns. The structures that were burned, completely decimated, except this time they seemed to get the frequency dialed a little bit closer, so it didn't cause a level of destruction that it did during the Tubbs fire. But consistent burn patterns. These things consistently showed us that they burned from the inside out. The evidence was there. Collapse of the walls inward, and other anomalies that we found is different steel sheds and mobile homes, etc., etc., etc. So we're not sure if there is a grounding role in this, but it does appear that when steel structures are well grounded to the earth, that they did better than other things that were not as well grounded. Like the structures, the cars, we talked about all these different examples. The evidence was overwhelming in our research up there that there was some sort of frequency or microwave frequency weapon used up there to initiate the fires. And we believe that what they did was the frequency that was selected, it caused an excitation of the molecules in different metals and caused them to heat up. And that when these different metals began to heat up, if they were surrounded by combustible materials, there's a fuel source for them. So, and this is evidence again with the cars and whatnot. So now we can't say specifically who played what role in doing this, but we invite other researchers to build off of our research that we did up there in our collection of forensic information, because I've been in this game long enough to know that none of us have all the answers, and that when we work together and we cooperate, that we tend to all bring different pieces of the puzzle to the table and see if if they're going to fit in forming a picture. And I'd like to thank all the people that are following our work, what we're doing out there, and following Shelley's work. Shelley's awesome.
No.
And turn it over to Matt.
Yeah, gosh, I think you pretty much, I totally agree with everything you just said. That was pretty much my assessment. I think the morning of the fire had people taken all their valuables and not put them in their car, but gone out to their trash can and put all their guns and all their valuables in their trash can on the street, they'd be a lot better off today. Take them out of they had emptied all their gun safes and put everything in the trash
As
can,
wild
glass
as it sounds.
trash can on the street, and gone away, they'd be a lot better off. And that is not normal. And that shouldn't, I mean, it's crazy. It sounds crazy, but that's what we saw. We saw most of the garbage cans were either fine or a little bit of melting from exposure, but the vehicle that was in similar distance from the house, completely torched. Safes, having a gun safe in your house, that's no good. All the guns are destroyed, most of them. So they stuck them in their garbage cans, plastic garbage cans. They would be much better off. And so I think John did a very good job of describing of what we saw. I concur 100%. It's exactly what I saw when we were up there. And I also want to thank everybody for this. My whole, and I know John is too, my whole agenda is to try, as I seek the truth, and then I try to help wake other people up to what I think is going on based on my abilities to try to figure it out. So that's all there is. So anyways.
And you're seasoned firemen, you know fires, and to give this analysis is just spot on. And what you said about them putting their guns and their money and all their valuables in a garbage can, they would have fared better than what they did with the gun safes and just leaving. It's just devastating.
And that's because these were not natural. That's
Fires.
So
Wow.
So anyways,
Thank you,
Shelley, and thanks
you.
to all the listeners, and for all the great comments and support. And we're all in this together, so we're all, like John said, none of us have all the answers. We're all trying to figure it out. We all have little pieces of the big puzzle.
Thank you guys so much, and we're just so blessed. I can't say that enough, that we have real true heroes. And I say that from the bottom of my heart. Your whole life you have spent and devoted to try to help people, save lives, and you're continuing to do this. And so we're just from the bottom of our hearts, and I've saw so many comments just praying for you guys. Thank them so much. Thank you guys so much. Everybody is just completely blessed for your testimony and your bravery going out there into this, a new war zone, if you will, of trying to save lives. So thank you guys so much. John, would you close us out with a prayer? Okay.
I'd be happy to.
Thank you.
Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for Shelley and for Matt and for all the listeners that will be listening to this tape. And we ask you to carry blessings to them, especially to those who have been injured or harmed by this series of disasters, these disastrous fires that are occurring all over the planet. And we ask you to carry hope to them, and we count our blessings at the same time. And I pray this prayer in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Thanks, guys. Listening to Down the Rabbit Hole with Shelley Lewis, John and Matt, retired fire captains. Thank you guys so much for giving us an update on the Paradise Fire. It's still going on, guys. We will keep reporting on this, and just as well as the other ones that, you know, Governor Brown has told us, I guess ex-Governor Brown has told us, the new abnormal. Keep spreading truth out there. Thanks, everybody. Have a good day. We love you.